Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And I'm Fran Blanche. Hey, Dave.
Again. Hey, Fran, how are you? Sorry.
Actually,
no.
that's true because it is again because I've been on your show before.
You have. Welcome back.
I'm a repeat visitor.
You are. You're part of the furniture now. Congratulations.
I always wanted to be objectified like that. Just part of the furniture.
Yeah, of course.
So,
why not?
It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining me at the last minute because Chris is not here. He's in New Zealand. And it's very rare I do a show without him.
Well,
I figure.
He's in your hemisphere. It's almost like being in New Jersey from my end. You know.
Right. Okay. So. Yeah, true. Anyway, he'll be here by the end of the week. We'll finally meet. Anyway, enough talking about Chris. I'm not here to talk about Chris. I thought it'd be interesting for us to talk about space because we both are space nerds. Is that correct?
Yeah. No,
You're very much a space nerd.
I'm getting used to. I'm trying to get used to the lag because we're like completely like the other side of the world apart. So
right.
I'm trying to get used to the delay.
Oh, we've got some delay, do we?
Yeah. So but yeah, I'm a huge space nut, as you know. So any excuse to talk about space.
We did talk once about actually doing a space podcast.
We tried to do that live thing.
Oh, we tried. Oh, that was horrible.
Using the YouTube thing.
Oh, that just
for Juno.
Juno, that's right. The technology just did not work.
That was that was a big fail. Epic fail.
Oh my god, no, I'm scarred from life for that YouTube. Not YouTube Live. It's YouTube Hangouts Live, which is different from YouTube Live and different from YouTube Hangouts. And it was hopeless. Anyway, we're experimenting this. We're recording this in video as well, so hopefully there will be a version over on YouTube eventually if I edit it all together.
This is highly experimental. This is like
highly.
This is our Apollo. This is Apollo level podcasting right here.
Right. All right. So space, because we're both space nerds. So I know it's got not. We've talked about space stuff on the Amp Hour before, but not a dedicated show. So I don't know, just for fun. Because Chris isn't really a space nerd. Like, he likes Elon and SpaceX and that sort of stuff, but it's not the same.
True. Well, they actually had the space news of the week because they were the first.
Oh,
they reused their rocket.
They did.
Yep.
They reused the Falcon 9.
Successfully, and they landed it too.
Wow. So that was huge. Woo!
It was. Actually, they have
huge progress.
Well, they do this live telecast when they do a launch, and
don't they do that really well? Nobody does it better than them. Live
they've
telecast.
got it all. They're firing on all cylinders over there. They spare no expense.
Yep.
But they had during that telecast for this last launch, they had Elon Musk on, which I think he's never been on the webcast before, like for any launch. But they had him on after it landed, and he was clearly emotional. Yeah,
he was.
He looked stunned.
It's been like a 20-year dream for him.
Yeah.
So it's he was stunned that it worked.
I
wonder what he was secretly running the odds at.
He had a lot rolling on it because if it would have, they had a satellite on it, which is
of course,
tens of millions of dollars. Yep. Plus, the reputation of SpaceX was hinging on that. But you have to know that they put some hours into making sure that rocket would work.
Oh yeah,
you gotta know.
They engineered the shit out of it.
But before they reflew it, I wouldn't be surprised if they took the damn thing completely apart.
Yep.
They took
and just be an empty shell. Yeah, exactly. How long was it between recovery and relaunch?
Well, they didn't. I don't think they mentioned exactly which booster they used for the relaunch.
Oh, right, because they've landed a couple, have they?
They've been
I
collecting.
thought they'd only landed the one Falcon 9.
No, it's like 3 or 4 at this point.
Oh, okay, right.
Successfully. So I don't know how old it was, or because they actually
they chose the best one.
Well, they've redesigned it several times since they've been landing it because they had that structural failure, and then they redesigned it. Yep. And then they've also redesigned it since the explosion because they had an issue with their helium tanks. And so I know that they did a major redesign since the last explosion. So I don't know which one they reflew.
Right.
Because they had an issue with the supercooled oxygen.
Yes.
They were using
that was the issue. Yep.
Yeah, well, the super chilled oxygen, apparently they use pressurized helium. It's been this has gone back since since the earliest days of rocketry. It might even go back to the V2 used hydrogen peroxide.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, they used hydrogen peroxide as a pressurant in the V2, but I know that the earliest American rockets were using pressurized helium because when the way rockets work, you have fuel, and then you got pumps that are going to pump the fuel, and you pump the pressurized fuel and oxidizer into a combustion chamber. You light it off. It expands rapidly. That gives you thrust. And usually they pressurize the fuel by running some of the fuel or oxidizer around the engine, so that as the engine starts, that uses the engine heat to heat up the fuel to turn the turbine to pressurize the fuel. But to get everything rolling, they use pressurized helium, and some of the engines, like the hypergolic motors that just have two chemicals that come together, they depend on the helium to push the fuel into the chamber to actually get it all to go. So I think the issue with the SpaceX thing was that they actually put the helium vessel inside, either near or inside the oxygen vessel.
Ah, yes.
And so when the super chill, the helium is it's liquefied, but it can actually turn to a solid, I guess, at like super cold temperatures.
Right.
And so they had an issue where the super cooled oxygen actually froze the helium in the helium tank, and the helium tank ruptured, and that was the whole
interesting.
shebang.
So it was just a placement issue, a physical placement issue that ultimately caused it. Was it?
I think they do that out of convenience, because they got to keep the helium really cold, so they put it inside of the oxygen vessel. But they had some kind of failure in their ability to regulate the temperature between the two. Between the oxygen and the helium. So whatever it is, they sorted it out. But it's really that they're the only ones. SpaceX are the only ones who have ever used super chilled oxygen. So I think they're really pushing the envelope for like stability as it is with with the way their designs are. So yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But yeah, they overcome that. Like, that was a big thing when that rocket blew up on the pad. I mean, that was a big deal, and they came out of that smelling like roses. It's fantastic.
Well, they have. That's one of the things of SpaceX. They have been resilient because they take a lot of risks.
Yep.
And they have some failures, but I think it's part of their mission plan. The failures are part of the plan, so it's not like they're not anticipating it to happen.
Yep. And that's a good thing to have, because, well, you can do that when it's not human space flight.
Well, this is the thing. SpaceX is contracted to do human flight. They actually part of their contract is to bring crews to the ISS, and with the problem with the helium tank, I really wondered, because they're actually supposed to start moving crews next year. And
that's pretty soon.
Yeah, I think that for any kind of human rocket, humaned rocket, I think that they really have to have a lot more flights under them to show
under their belt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like the 1960s. It's like where test pilots were totally expendable and expected to die, kind of thing. It was this is a different, these are like civilian, well, they're NASA, but they're, or whatever, they're civilians going up, it's not like, and we've been flying humans since the 60s. So, people just expect it to work. They don't expect failure.
Well, not only that, but SpaceX and anyone else who's going to fly crews to the ISS, they're really going to be competing with the record of the Russians of Baikonur, because they've never lost a rocket at Baikonur.
Really?
Not a human rocket.
Not a human. They've lost them on re-entry though.
Well,
but that's different. So
that was like Voskhod 1, or that was
yeah.
That was like 66 or 67 or something.
Yeah, it was very early on.
But all of the International Space Station flights, they've never lost a crew, and they've flown lots and lots and lots of crews up to the ISS. Meanwhile, we've had 2 shuttle failures.
Yep.
14 crew members dead. So we don't have a very good record.
No, it's like 2 out of what? How many flights were there? 120 or something?
120, 140 some odd. I'd have to look in the book to find out how many STS flights there were. But yeah, it was 1% failure rate or 2% failure rate, which is pretty bad for human flight. So
what do you think it needs to be before your Joe average would go on it? It's got to be.
Oh, it's got to be hundreds of thousands of a percent.
Right.
I mean, what if? I mean, imagine what commercial air flight would be if you had 0.1% failure rate.
Yeah, no, exactly. Even 0.01% or something.
It's got to be in the millionths of percent, millions of percent for people to do it. So I don't know. Space is never going to be safe. No, it's not. It's just
inherent. No, it's an engineering issue. It becomes an engineering thing. You just can't make it completely safe.
No.
Well, we can't make regular flight completely safe. It's pretty darn good. I mean, it's
amazingly good.
It's amazingly good.
I think the people take for granted how safe air travel is. It is so unbelievably safe.
Ridiculous.
I mean, as catastrophic as a jet airliner crash is, they're so rare that that commercial air travel is safer than walking.
Yeah, I know. Like, more people get hit by cars crossing the road than they do.
More people get injured walking in their own homes than flying in an aircraft. Yeah. So it's just mind-bogglingly safe. But but people would if they're trying to think of that space would ever be like that, it won't, because there are some. I mean, it's like this. It's like they said in The Martian. This is space. It does not cooperate. I mean, that's just the best.
Exactly.
The best way to put it.
I mean, because flight is like Earth-based flight. Is different. Sure, like the oxygen can fail and stuff like that, and you have 30 seconds to put your mask on, but then they can drop the plane, and as long as they've still got control, it's like a plane would have to like explode in midair for it to be, to like have the same sort of level as space. Yeah, it's like there is zero margin for error with space.
The level of the level of danger in spaceflight is exponential to flying in the atmosphere. It's not just when you have a vacuum, you have radiation, you've got the speeds, because to get into orbit, you're talking in excess of 18,000
26 or something.
Yeah. So you've got reentry, which is always the biggest part of the biggest risk is reentry.
Yep.
And so. Yeah, there's exponentially more danger and just getting into orbit. But they did say that the next thing the big stunt that was announced that SpaceX, they said they're going to put. It is a stunt. It is a stunt. They said they're going to put two billionaires around the moon next year.
That's right. Who were they? They named. Did they name them in the end?
Did they? I
think
have not.
One of them might have leaked out. Stephen Hawking was one of them who wanted to go, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, I barely think he's going to. He's like 80 something. Well, he's going to barely going to survive.
He's not a billionaire, so I can't imagine that he'd be in the list.
No, but I think publicity-wise, it's.
I don't think that he would survive I don't think he'd pass the minimum physical requirements for.
Yep.
I wouldn't pass the minimum physical requirements for space flight. But they did announce that they're gonna I guess that 2 billionaires had put down the money to be shoved in a capsule and flung around the backside of the moon.
Yep.
And
that'd be awesome.
Would it?
I don't know. Sarah, that'd be Apollo 8 all over again.
Well, I'd call me classist, but I think that the idea that billionaires get to go to the moon
I know. Well,
when a person who, like you or myself, who could truly appreciate the gravity of that,
but I think you might be cutting them a bit short there. I don't know who it is, right? So, but I think they're probably, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't take that risk unless you truly wanted to do that. I don't, you don't see these billionaires lining up just because they've got the money. You've got to have the guts. You've got to have the interest. You've probably got to have the passion to do it. So I think there's got to be some resemblance of, passion there to want to. It's not just about money.
Well, I do have a short list of billionaires that I'd put on the rocket if they were sure that it wouldn't come back.
Yeah, same. Yeah, if there was a 10% chance of them not coming back. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's I can name a lot. Anyway, I just sort of ignore that aspect and go, yes, we're going back to the moon kind of thing.
Well, we're not going back to the moon. Billionaires are going back to the moon.
Billionaires are going back to the moon. But the fact that somebody's going back is exciting for me. Anyway.
Well, they're going around the moon. They're not going to the moon.
Well, I know. They're going around. But that's very Apollo 8-ish. Which
it is Apollo 8-ish minus, of course, the astronauts who actually trained and kind of deserved to go there.
Yeah. Yes, I know. No, I totally agree. They should send astronauts, right? Real trained astronauts.
I mean, if they're going to send people around the moon, it shouldn't be two billionaires that the first people to go around the moon.
Yeah.
Since Apollo 17.
Then,
it shouldn't be two billionaires. Agree. They should have a lottery, and it should be two humans that are not billionaires who just want to go on the trip. I mean, it should
to represent humanity, kind of thing.
I mean, Apollo wasn't about sending people of privilege to a special place. It was about it was about the human voyage, and and the problem with our world today is that we're making it a world where rich people get to do everything, and where rich people can do everything, where they can. Where if you're rich, you can go around the moon, you can be president, you can do whatever you want, you can build your own rockets, But, the idea that a billionaire class will do everything great, and the rest of us are just going to watch.
Yep,
that's a world I don't
totally
live
agree.
In.
Yep. No, you'll get no argument from me. Let's not talk about billionaires anymore.
Changing the subject, I have a really cool thing coming in the mail soon. I'm going to do a vlog about, but I don't know if you got in on this, but I got in on the Kickstarter for the Voyager records.
Oh, yes. The guy, I didn't get on the Kickstarter, but he emailed me last night and said he wants to send one into the mailbag.
But you're going to get one anyway then?
I think I'm going to get one when it's produced. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I went in on the Kickstarter. I got it the old school way. I went in on the Kickstarter and, but I've been getting the updates and,
awesome.
I'm really looking forward to that.
He approached me, wanted to know about, if he could get it on the mailbag, and I don't think he actually has one yet. I just assumed, send it in the mailbag, that'd be great. But I thought he'd have a couple of prototypes or something that he could send.
They're like they actually needed the money to even start because they're going to the original tapes. They spent months restoring the original recordings. And the remastering all of them. They're doing everything.
Hang on. What? I thought it was. I didn't know it was that.
Yeah.
Oh right. I thought it was just like a little medallion.
No, that's
thing.
That's the whole thing.
Oh.
Yeah, they're repressing all the original records on vinyl.
Oh, so it's it's a playable record.
Yeah, including the
I didn't look.
including the analog, the analog raster images on.
The video raster images. Right. Yeah. If people don't know about that, I'm actually doing a screen capture here in the background, putting up images and stuff. For people who don't know. if you want to watch it on YouTube, if you want to re-watch this, or if you want to instead of listen to it, you can watch it. And I'm putting up.
I'm totally not using my camera. I could be showing stuff. I've got piles of books. I could be showing my picture books of the.
Yep. No, but yeah, it was a record. It was an actual record that not only contained audio recordings, but images as well. And the plaque, if people don't know, the plaque itself is contains all the information on there to decode the video signal and the audio signal, and they even included like a stylus on the probe. So
they did.
Yep. Hopefully next week I am going somewhere very cool that will involve Voyager. Let's just say that.
Oh, are you coming to my side of the globe?
I'm not coming to your side of the ditch. No, it's in Australia here.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'll tell you after the show.
All right.
I'll tell you after the show.
All right.
Yep.
Say no more. Say no more.
I've had an invite to somewhere very cool. In fact, I've had an invite to a couple of very cool things. A space-related rocket thing, which I have to I'll be doing shortly. And Chris and I might be doing a road trip to this special location that involves something to do with Voyager.
Sounds very mysterious.
Yes. Anyway, I don't want to ruin it. So, the Voyager probe, very cool. It contains but if you look at I always thought like the images that they included on there were just like this guy eating like some toast and this girl licking an ice cream, and some funky looking dude drinking out of a wine decanter or something like.
Well, the contents of the Voyager record, the images and the music, it was all done by committee. So it has it definitely has the feel of a project done by committee, including the music that they've been criticized a lot for the fact that they didn't really want to put any like contemporary music on as a consolation to the kids. They put on Johnny Be Good by the recently late Chuck Berry.
Yes,
who just died this past week.
He did.
But that was, I think Sagan was against that. I think they thought that Johnny Be Good was a cheap shot. I thought though, with the fact that the records were done in the late 70s, I would have thought, well, what about like Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles, or or some swing music, or Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, I could have come up with like 1,000 people that I would have wanted on that record.
Right. Yep.
That they didn't put on there.
Could everyone else. Yeah.
But it's all like it's all orchestral music and stuff. They have some world music, but it's a very kind of a Eurocentric kind of record. I don't think it really represented us as a species too well.
Right. But
anyway,
at least it's out there.
It's out there. It's in interstellar space. Can't get it back.
Oh goodness. No.
It's like they said, when you put the probe into interstellar space, you can't get it back.
They always say that. Yeah?
They always say that.
Oh goodness. What is your favorite? What is your favorite space-related space achievement? What is your favorite and why? I mean, I'm putting you on the spot. I've got one. I can tell you mine first if you want.
Okay,
so give you time to think about.
Well, I probably could. It's probably an easy answer. I mean, I would say Apollo 11, but it's just. That's an easy answer.
Right. Yes, it
just
is.
Because it's it. I don't think it has to be explained why.
No, of course.
I watched the moon landing on television.
Wow.
Live. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep, I didn't. Unfortunately, I wasn't born then. Sorry. I'm old, but.
But if you had been around, you would have seen a much better picture than we did, because the video from the moon landing, it was picked up in Australia.
It was. Have you seen The Dish, the movie?
No.
Watch The Dish. Do yourself a favor, watch The Dish. It's an Australian movie about the moon landing, about actually recording that signal. Oh. And you have to watch it. It's great.
I'll have to look that up.
and they use all classic hardware and stuff. Like it's, you know, shot as it was in the 60s, and like, you know, what they had to go through to actually get the moon landing signal, and they picked it up here. And it's part fact, it's embellished fact. You know, it's Hollywood, right?
It's a dramedy, or like a
It's a dramedy. It's like a comedy. Yeah, it's like there's comedic. Yeah, it's a.
Of course, it's an Australian film. It has to have comedy in it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you, but you know, it was only recently that I think a copy or a more closely original copy of that video feed was found. Right. Because there was a lot of conversion. That it was received in Australia, and then it was and then it had to be converted because I guess
where we use the PAL system or whatever, and I don't know what. Yeah,
well, it was like. Well, no, it was. I mean, it was running at a very. I mean, it was on shortwave, so it wasn't NTSC or PAL. It was
right. It was
on a very low band system, but they had to convert the image to in the transmission process. There was something where by the time we got it stateside, it only had like half the resolution.
Oh, really? Okay.
When it was received in Australia. So when was this found? Recently, I think. I'd have to look it up, but
has somebody uploaded like the
it might be. I mean, it's been in recent years. We're not talking months, but you know, within the last decade, that the better video was found. So it's out there. I know.
Right. I've got a cool time lapse video of the dish, the Parkes Radio telescope, on my second channel. I went there and I've got some time lapse of it actually moving, the whole dish just moving through its full cycle. It's really quite cool.
So what's your favorite space event?
My favorite space event is Apollo 8. Apollo 8, because I'll tell you why. Because not only was it the first time we actually left Earth, like really left Earth, and you know, human eyes actually saw the Earth, you know, as an actual globe, as you know, with the blackness in the background, and of course they took the famous Earthrise photo on that, which was, you know, probably the most famous photo of all time, probably without a doubt. You know, the famous Earthrise. I've got it up here on the screen now, for those who are watching the video, and so not only that, it was the first time we actually left Earth. We truly became a spacefaring, you know, species, and rather than just dick around in low Earth orbit, you know. And also because it was so gutsy, that was the first time that the Saturn V had actually, they had launched the Saturn V, and the first time that they put humans on it. Right. So it was a gutsy move because at the time they were going to do more test flights. You know, I think 9 and 10 was supposed to be Apollo, you know, low Earth orbit test flights. Sorry, 8, 9, and 10 or something was supposed to be low. And then they, the CIA or something got wind of a rumor that, you know, the Ruskies were going to send a man around the moon in a Zond capsule, which was their capsule at the time, and they went, oh no, we have to beat them. They're going to claim, you know, they weren't going to land. They knew they weren't going to land, but hey, they could claim that they made it to the moon first, right? If they orbited, you know, swung around just the backside. I don't think they were even going to orbit. I think that they were just going to, the Russian one, they were just going to like fly around the backside and come back.
It's free return, the free return trajectory.
The free return trajectory. I cannot say that word. I'm
they had was it the M1 the M1 moon rocket? So was on the pad, and
it was on the pad. They had the satellite photos of it on the pad being fueled or something, and they
before it blew up and took out half of their engineers.
Right. Oh, yes.
Yeah, terrible. Very unfortunate Cold War speed. The explosion of the M1 rocket that killed like several hundred Russian engineers because it was fully fueled and they were working on the rocket when it went. So, I totally agree. It was a incredibly ballsy thing.
And so they to launch that, they hadn't tested. They tested the Saturn 1B. But they hadn't tested the 5 rocket configuration, i.e. the Saturn V.
Right.
And so not only did they not test it first, they went, oh, bugger it, let's put somebody on it. And not only that did they say, oh, let's put humans on it, but they said, let's not go to low Earth orbit. Let's do
the whole thing.
The moonshot.
Do the whole smash.
It was the biggest gamble in history, and it pulled off, and they made it. They did it.
It was a huge thing. No, I think you're spot on about all that. I just, yeah. I mean, we're both right. They were both monumental things.
No, Apollo 11, of course, was monumental achievement.
But you notice that
small step far.
But you notice that both of our choices, both of our choices involve human beings and the moon.
They do.
So as great as Voyager was, as great as Curiosity is, as great as the ISS is, as all the Hubble, all these amazing achievements throughout the last 40 years, it still stands that there's absolutely no replacement for human beings being there.
Absolutely. Just from our selfish pride point of view. I mean, we could achieve the same science or better by, sending out a whole fleet of, an armada of robots, right?
And we do.
We kind of sort of send out a couple, but not an armada of, if we spent the same money, if NASA suddenly got $300 billion or something to send humans to Mars and actually colonize Mars. Imagine how many probes that would buy. It'd be phenomenal, right?
Yeah,
it'd be absolutely phenomenal. We could have crawling all over Mars. We'd be going down in the oceans of Europa and all the ones that we want to visit. And
the amount of money that has been spent on space flight for us as a species compared to everything else that we spent money on, if you took the amount of money that we've spent in the last 50 years, all of the money every country spends on space flight versus warfare.
It's like not even a percent.
It's a fraction, small fraction
small fraction of a percent. As Neil Tyson likes to say, the American NASA budget is 0.5% of America's gross domestic product.
Well, it's much less than that now because it's been they've cut it dramatically. So it's going to be just a trickle.
It's tragic. Yep. And I think he said that the entire 50-year budget, I might have to try and find the video where he says this, the entire 50-year budget of NASA, including the moon landings, right, and including the entire Apollo program, Gemini, right, everything, right, Mercury, the whole works, including all that, all the space shuttle stuff, the 50-year operating budget of NASA doesn't equal one, war or something that they've been in, or one, it doesn't even equal, one year's budget of the military or something. It's just
I mean your average war costs trillions of dollars, and we have not even approached anywhere near that in space. So
it's crazy.
Well, here's an interesting tidbit that might not be known. All of the representations, the dramas and reenactments, like from the Earth to the Moon and all the other kinds of reenactments of Apollo 11. One of the weird things that they've never really talked about, never shown that I've seen, is that on the first moon landing, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, they spent the whole excursion tethered to the LEM. They were actually attached.
They were tethered?
Yeah.
I did not know that. You've just blown my mind.
I think there was concern that they didn't know if you got off the LEM, if you'd fall in a hole, a sinkhole. So they were prepared with or if an astronaut got incapacitated or
the other one could pull them back out,
something like that. But you can, when they released that better video of the
you can see it, can you?
You can see you can see the cables.
Oh wow.
But when they got out and were walking around from the LEM, they were attached to these sort of weird cable-y things.
So it was only Apollo 11.
Yeah, they didn't do that for any of the others that I'm aware of. But that
explains why they didn't go very far. I know they only had 4 hours on the surface or something, but they.
Well, it might have been Yeah, it might have been to prevent them from running off too. Who knows? But they had all kinds of strange precautions for the first moon landing. It was.
Oh no, hang on. It says here, the fact that during the climb down, when Neil was climbing down the ladder, the LEM ladder, during his first moments after stepping off, he was tethered.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe they weren't tethered for the entire.
Maybe they took them off after they walked around a bit and realized they weren't going to sink.
Was safe. Okay, yeah, that'd be interesting.
But, yeah.
Maybe you could hear that on the audio, because now haven't they recreated? You can get the entire mission.
You can
recreated
actually
online.
Yeah, there's actually
there's
a great link. Someone has done this online real-time synchronization of all of the available footage, real-time synced with the audio for the landing and the moonwalk.
Imagine the work that went, and other ones. I did, like, I think it was Apollo 17 as well. They've done it for multiple ones, and I watched some. It's fascinating. Like, you could sit there, like, it's the entire thing, like the entire 3-day mission or whatever. Like, it's nuts. Well, the amount of work that went into that.
I have from the 1980s. I still have an original Laserdisc for Apollo 17. It has.
Wow.
It's a laser. Well, you see, Laserdisc is analog. It's analog video, and they could format the Laserdisc several ways. They could format it either like a VHS, where it's like every frame just follows the next in a spiral, or they could have the disc formatted so that every single frame has its own ring, so you can store photographs and such and index them all individually. And so this NASA archive disc of 17, it has every photograph and every frame of video and every frame of film shot on 17, all indexed on this disc, and you can independently go and see every single thing. So all of the 16 millimeter stuff they shot in their cameras en route, and all the photos they took on the surface and everything, it's all indexed on this Laserdisc. So,
is there a copy up on YouTube or something? If people
don't know. I don't know.
Wow. If there's not, that'd be great.
I don't have the only copy, I'm sure.
No. But, that'd be great to try and get that.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, I don't know how you YouTube it, because it's got tens of thousands of photographs on it. But the idea is, you can index them all individually. You can type in the frame number and go to a specific photograph and recall it on the disc. It's one of the things I miss. I'm a big Laserdisc fan. I've got a lot of Laserdiscs, and it's one of the cool things about Laserdisc was the way you could index photographs and stuff. But
awesome.
I digress.
Well, I just YouTubed Apollo 17 Laserdisc, and there's nothing really there. Anyway,
it might be rarer than I realize.
It might be rarer than you imagine. Wow.
It is from the 80s, so.
Right. Awesome. Have you met an astronaut? Have you met a real live moonwalker?
I have not, but I have something here that's been on the moon.
Yep. Really?
Yeah.
What?
This right here. I'm going to hold it up to the camera. This.
I can't see it. I can't see it.
No, you'll see it in post. I'm going to
have to watch my own video back.
You'll see it in post. I'm going to hold it up. Yeah. Right. So this little thing here, it's a tiny piece of insulation, wire insulation. It came from the Luna 24 recovery pod that came from the lunar surface in August of 1976.
Hang on. What's that? Luna
24. People don't realize that the Russians did land on the moon.
Luna. Right. Yes. Sorry.
Right.
Yep.
They had many.
They did sample return. Yeah.
Yes, and so they had 2 successful sample return missions, and the last one was Luna 24. And this piece of insulation, it was on the moon, and the lunar samples, they took core samples that were put into a recovery pod, which came back, and this piece of wire insulation was on that recovery pod, which came back to Earth. So this thing I have here, right in the office, it was on the friggin' moon, on the surface.
Wow. No way.
Yeah.
How did you get that?
Yes way. A long time ago. I mean, people have asked me, how did you get a piece of a Saturn V? How did you get a piece of this?
Right.
You just, if you have an interest in collecting things are there. if you keep your, well, I mean, these days it's much rarer, but in the 90s, 80s, if you wanted space collectibles, I mean, you could buy anything,
Wow.
In the 80s when they were purging warehouses and storehouses from the Goddard Space Flight Center to Houston to Grumman and you name it. I mean, you could get parts and pieces of Apollo hardware for pennies or free.
Yep, free. Yep.
Pick it up and take it. You can have
straight out of the tip.
So I mean, people are saying, "Oh, how can you have a piece of? Isn't that like government property?" It's like, no. I mean, this stuff was going to landfill in the 70s and 80s. Exactly. And there was just so much stuff, But that's when collectors got space suits and pieces of, spacecraft and stuff like that. That's when it all got out there in the public. And
then the internet happened and eBay happened and then...
well, these days, now there's a price tag attached to all this stuff. And, trades hands much less readily than it did decades ago, that's for sure.
Interesting.
Yep.
Oh, wow. I have met Gene Cernan, who sadly died late last year.
I remember you talking about that.
Yes, I met Gene Cernan. I went, because that was a lifetime achievement thing for me. I wanted to shake the hand of one of the moonwalkers. And when I heard Gene Cernan was coming out here, I went, right, I'm getting the meet and greet, package. And I'm going to shake his hand, and I've got a photo somewhere.
Wow,
of me and Gene Cernan before he just tragically died, not a few months back.
Of old age, fortunately.
Old age, fortunately, yes. But he was a bit fragile, but he was still fully with it. Unlike Buzz, sadly, I've gone to see Buzz as well. Haven't shaken his hand though, and he's a bit
still, Buzz is crusty. I mean, he's still out there, but
he's 89 or he's 88 or something.
Really up there.
87.
I mean, he was one of the oldest astronauts at the time.
Yeah.
He was. So he's all that high Z radiation and everything. He's still going.
Yep, he's still ticking. So good on him.
Still going.
And but that was Gene Cernan was exactly who you would imagine a moonwalker to be,
Well, he was very much, I've seen a lot of interviews he's given. And of course, I'm a huge fan of 17 because it was really like the last time on the moon was when they actually got down to doing real science.
Do real science, and a real scientist was there.
Right.
A lot of people don't know this, but they were actually going to send Eugene Shoemaker on Apollo 17. A lot of people didn't know that. He was the number one pick to go on Apollo 17, but then he didn't pass the medical in some way. And then so they got Harrison Schmitt, who was also trained in the astronauts for the moon mission, and they tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, do you want to go to the moon?"
Yeah,
hell yes.
And he was a geologist by
he was a geologist, so they actually trained him to fly aircraft. One of the first things he did was learn to become a pilot. Apparently, turned out to be a pretty decent pilot.
Well, he was. I think, wasn't he the first person ever to go into space? I mean, first American ever to go into space who was not a pilot. I mean, not like a test pilot first.
Yes,
because
he would have been. Yes,
yeah,
yes, but. They didn't just send him. He was trained to fly aircraft. They trained him to be an experimental pilot. But no, that was not his background. Of course, he had never flown a plane before. They tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you want to go to the moon?"
Well, that's because
he learned very quickly.
As being the other seat on the moon, he would have to be the LEM pilot.
Yes,
so,
exactly. He's got to land the thing.
Well, no, the LEM pilot didn't. Yeah, the LEM pilot didn't actually pilot the LEM. That was one of the points of consternation for every LEM pilot.
Called out all the data and everything else, and had to make calls. And it
was just that was the title that they got. I mean, the commander always landed the LEM.
Yes,
but the person who never got a chance to actually pilot the LEM was called the LEM pilot.
LEM pilot. Yeah.
So it was just go figure. Yeah.
Anyway,
Al Bean had a big thing about that, about because because Shepard let Bean actually pilot the LEM when they were on the dark side and they were out of radio contact.
Really?
So
okay,
because when they got around the dark side of the moon, they didn't have any telemetry. So NASA would monitor all the gimbal numbers and everything, and if they saw that they were tumbling or moving around, they would say, "What are you doing?
What are you doing? I'm just having fun, letting them have a go." You know?
So when he got around the backside, he said he let Al Bean actually fly the LEM for 10 minutes while they were out of radio contact.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like a billions of dollar mission on the line. Yeah, have a go. You know?
Well, that was Pete Conrad. So.
Yep, that's terrific. Oh, they were gun ho. Those guys, they were absolutely brilliant.
I never got a chance to meet an astronaut, but the closest I ever got to the astronauts was when I was at the Smithsonian, and I got to stand at the threshold of the Apollo simulator.
Oh, yes.
So that was my closest to the moon moment that I have. When I stood on this, they have the remnants of the Apollo simulator, command module simulator at the Smithsonian. It's all taken apart, but it was this thing that they used to call the train wreck, because they kind of had like a reproduction of it in Apollo 13, but the model they had in Apollo 13 was only like about 1/4 the size of how gargantuan it was. It was actually like the size of a building.
Wow.
It had all these modules attached to it, and it was this ungainly construction that they called the train wreck, and in the middle of it was this command module that had all those stuff attached to it, so that they could, because they had simulators for every station. So the command module has several decks, and so you have where the pilot sits where they're taking off, but then there's a lower deck where they have a navigation place where the telescope, where you can actually look at the stars, and that's where they would get their orientation for setting numbers in the computer. So they had to have simulations for all these different stations, and so that they sort of propagated out of this command module, that was sitting on a stand, and it became this huge thing. But what they have it all in pieces, but the actual command module itself, they have it on this stand over at the Smithsonian. And when I was there, the guy had me get up on a ladder and stand up on it and look inside. And when I was up there and I looked in there and saw the benches and everything, and he kind of made me, he said, Fran, you got to realize that where you're standing right now, everybody who ever flew on Apollo stood exactly where you're standing right now. They stood on that.
You didn't cry, did you?
I had a moment.
You had a moment, yeah. I probably would have had a moment too.
It was, I'm sure when you met Gene Cernan, I'm sure you had that moment. It was very cool. That's as close as I got to like walking in the footsteps of those who went there.
Have you read Gene Cernan's book?
I don't have his book. I've got Shepard's book. I've got Lovell's book. I've got a few others, but I haven't found a copy. I usually pick up my books at the secondhand. So whenever I find anything on space, I gobble it up. But I haven't gotten a copy of his book secondhand yet.
Right, it's pretty good, but I recommend the audio version because it's Gene himself who speaks it. So I've got it on cassette tape. I've got the original Gene Cernan's book, audio book on cassette tape, and back then it wasn't available on CD or anything like that. So I actually it's on like 7 tapes. Yeah, it's actually on like 7 different cassette tapes. I actually I actually recorded. I actually sampled into the PC. I actually recorded the cassette tape, so I got the MP3 files, and then I'd play it in my car and stuff like that.
You've got to send me a copy of this. I've got
it. Okay,
desperately want to hear that.
Copy of the audio. It's probably not, because I scanned it from the tapes. I recorded it from there. So it's not like I ripped off the CD or something. You can buy it on CD now, apparently. But
lo-fi is fine for me.
It's pretty decent quality. It's really good. Anyway, I will send it to you after the show.
Oh, awesome. Ooh, win-win.
Yeah. So yeah, he was great to meet. I mean, he was He was so passionate about it, and he's exactly what you expect from a moonwalker. It's great. It's absolutely great. I'm also a big fan of Alan Bean. I would love, if anyone ever wants to get me a birthday present, I would love an Alan Bean original painting.
Yeah, I would love that too. I know
$100,000 or something.
There was a story a few years back that NASA had taken his hammer back because he had
his hammer back
because
really?
he had his geological hammer.
Yep.
And he used it in his paintings. You know, when he did a painting, he would use like the hammer as like a tool and like scrape it in. Right, so that'd be like part of the thing. And it was some years back that NASA demanded to have the hammer when they found out that he had it to get it back. And so he had to forfeit it. But there's this thing about, with artifacts and stuff, NASA used to let astronauts take whatever they wanted.
Exactly.
It was like, at the end of World War II, the vets came back, they got to, their rifle, their handgun, their grenades, they'd bring them home. They don't let you do that anymore. But But yeah, I think at some point someone got the idea that these things actually had value and they shouldn't be out there in the world. I know that when Neil Armstrong died, they had found in his home a sealed trunk, and when they opened it up, it had all these that he didn't tell anyone about, like not even his wife.
Wow.
And it was like an original camera that he had on the moon. All kinds of artifacts, stuff that he had, like from the LEM that he didn't tell anyone he had. It was like this, major archaeological find post-mortem. So
I'm going to have to investigate. That's interesting, because Alan, I find that interesting because they took Alan Bean's hammer back because he famously uses his moon boot, his actual moon boot, on his paintings. He actually imprints the actual moon boot he used, and it's still got lunar dust on it. So you can actually buy from him a painting with actual lunar dust and his moon boot imprinted in it. You can actually, you can buy it. So, I'm surprised that they took the hammer back, and maybe they took the boot as well. But yeah, he famously has his moon boots.
Maybe
with,
they did.
Lunar dust.
Maybe he got to keep it. Maybe he got to keep the hammer. But I know it was a big tiff some time back. But you can. There are things you can have lunar rocks, and you can even get Mars rocks. They are havable.
Yes, because that they find in the Antarctic.
Because there are pieces of the moon and pieces of Mars that land on the Earth all the time in the form of meteorites, because these Mars and the moon, they don't have atmospheres really, and so when they get pummeled by a really good impact, all this ejectorate gets thrown into space. It gets it orbits in the space between the Earth and the moon, right?
And years,
and it ends up, and the Earth kind of just flies through the dust, and it ends up on the Earth's surface. So there are some verified Mars rocks, Mars meteorites that. And some of them have been chopped up where you can actually get a little piece of it and actually have a little piece of Mars. I mean,
wow,
it's doable, havable.
Yep. Well, speaking of which, if anyone wants to buy me, there's one Alan Bean original still available. It's $433,000. So by all means, I accept donations.
Jump change. Well, you could crowdsource that, Dave.
Yeah, I could crowdsource that. It's 41 inches by 50 inches. It's a big one.
Go fund me, Dave's moon painting.
Go fund me, Dave. Yeah, I want Alan Bean just because I'm.
Oh wow.
Yep. I've got a photo. I've got image of that up on the screen at the moment. That's good. Yeah, great. Anyway, I want that. I so want it badly. But yeah,
I want one. I want an Al Bean painting now, Dave.
Oh, I'll fight you for it.
Okay, we'll have battling crowdfunding for it.
And battling crowdfunding, and people can decide who gets it.
There can be only one, Dave.
Right. I'm happy to let the crowd decide.
So, thanks for pointing out my letter that the stamps. I knew that you would appreciate my attention to detail.
Yes, I did. the male
New Horizon.
thing. The New Horizons, wasn't that great?
It was absolutely white knuckle excitement for me. That was
brilliant. I live cast that. I think I captured that live, and it's up on my second channel or something as it passed. It's not that exciting because I don't know, but my video's not that exciting. But yeah, that was great. But not only that, like people, ever since Pluto was discovered, everyone thought it was just this. Be just like this dirty snowball, right? It'd be like boring as bat poo, and they get there, and it's one of the most interesting planets in the solar system.
Isn't it really? I mean, it has mountains, it has atmosphere. It might even have volcanoes.
It's got volcanoes of methane in it, but and it just looks fantastic, and it was so mind blowing. No one expected that.
It's like, can we make can we make Pluto a planet again now that we know that it has like mountain ranges and an atmosphere and
yeah, I know. I'm totally
and
for
rivers
it.
of methane, and valleys and canyons.
It's got it all. It was stunning, and it just goes to show, space always surprises you. Everything, like, you just don't know what you're going to find until you actually get there and do it.
Space might not cooperate, but it is beautiful.
It is, yeah. It's always, I don't think there's like anything that's been like, I guess Mars, people expected maybe, I don't know, to find something more interesting, like from the original Viking landing photos or something maybe, but but it's almost always, every mission has been fascinating in some way. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, Pluto was a massive surprise, and I thought that was one of the best missions ever. That was great.
They sure got
I'm surprised they got funding for that, because, Pluto, it's just a dirty snowball. Who gives a toss about Pluto, right? Nothing, but they got the funding for it, sent the probe there, and it just sent back some of the most spectacular images and data that we've ever seen. It's just nuts.
Well, here's something that people don't talk about. People kind of assume that we'll be sending probes to the outer solar system like perpetually, but we don't have the plutonium for it, because they ran out of plutonium. There was only a certain amount of plutonium that they use, a very particular isotope of plutonium for the radio generators.
Why is that?
It's why did they only have a certain amount of plutonium, or why do they use plutonium?
Why did they use a specific type?
There's a specific isotope of plutonium that has a rate of decay that allows it to be stable, but hot. So it creates heat
because it's thermal. Yeah, it's got to create heat.
Because the radiothermal generators, it's basically just a solar cell. It's basically just a pack of solar cells.
It's a Peltier device, isn't it? I thought it was just a Peltier device.
No, it's
the Peltier effect.
No, it's actually just like a silicon solar cells. It's only that it's converting infrared light instead of visible light.
Oh,
so
really?
So it's actually just directly. No, it actually it directly generates electricity from the heat, from the infrared. From the infrared emission from the plutonium.
Oh, okay.
So it's really like a solar power. But it's preferred for deep space travel because you don't need light, and they will generate They generate a fair amount of electricity. I think the Voyager generators, have been running for.
Hang on, I've got the wiki page up. It says it uses the Seebeck effect.
Seebeck,
which is the Seebeck effect, which is the thermoelectric TEG thing.
Okay.
So I think I'm right. Oh, no, in places where solar cells are not... Oh, no. Yeah, it uses... Okay. So I'd be curious to know where you got the info on the... Is it the
Peltier? It is using the Peltier effect?
It is using the Celtier effect, which is the Peltier
effect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, I stand corrected.
Yeah. Okay. I'd be curious to know if there is a variant that does that, because I can picture that working. So maybe there is a variant.
Yeah.
So that... Perhaps Anyway.
Well, that's the different. Yeah, I'm speaking off the top of my head, so I probably am mistaken.
Right, so they use plutonium-238. They use strontium-90. They use some of them used.
Is it the Russians that use strontium?
Polonium. Yes. The Russians use strontium-90.
Okay.
And they also used polonium-210 as well. Yes.
It's probably not as efficient. Maybe it doesn't get as hot. But from what I had read that NASA was given a certain amount of plutonium like decades ago, and they've been parsing it out for deep space missions, and they don't have any left. I've
heard that it's pretty short supply or something.
Or they maybe have enough for one more mission, maybe, but
right.
But I don't know why it is that they can't get more, because obviously...
Yeah, I don't understand that either. Why don't they just go on an effort to...
Well, the Department of Energy, I mean, they make plutonium all the time. They're always making new nuclear weapons, so... Maybe it requires an act of Congress or something to...
Maybe something like that. Because I'm a huge fan of those. I think every deep space mission should use them. There's a small risk of, the rocket exploding on the launch pad, blah, 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 right? And scattering the stuff. But in terms of the atmospheric testing that we've done in the past, it's going to be it's not a big deal.
That was issue on 13. Well, that was one of the issues on 13, because they brought the LEM back with them with the descent stage.
Oh, right.
And they had it
burnt up in the atmosphere, didn't it? Or did it?
They brought it back. Yeah.
Skim off. They actually detached from it. What happened to it? Did it just float in space forever, or did it burn up?
I think they brought it all the way back. So I mean, they didn't have any. They didn't have any fuel to maneuver it into an orbit or anything. So I imagine it would have burned up. But it came back with all of the science experiments, which did have plutonium, and there was a concern about that. Oh, but I think it was. I'm trying to remember if the was it that the plutonium was inside of they had it in a vessel, that there's something, they had some kind of containment for the plutonium that they were sure would survive re-entry, that it could, that it wouldn't break up, that it would go into the ocean in one piece, and it wouldn't disperse in the atmosphere. But I have to look it up, that there was a name for it, but there was a special kind of containment that they had just as a concession for all this, because the idea of putting plutonium into a rocket that's going to go into space, it could blow up. So they've taken, at least American flights, take the precaution of whenever a spacecraft goes up that does have plutonium, the generator has to be contained in this special kind of vessel that would survive an explosion, would survive re-entry.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that the core would stay intact all the way to the ground. Like, I guess they've somehow exhaustively, tested these things, but
right, and they need to, and maybe that's what they're running. Maybe they're not running. No, but I've heard they're running out of plutonium, so it's not. Yeah,
it's just a tiny little bit left. So as far as like deep space shots, like Deep Horizons, unless they can get allocated more plutonium, we probably won't be going to the outer solar system anytime soon.
Bummer.
Again.
That's depressing. I don't want to hear that. Stop it.
We'll just have to send people.
Right. Well, let's talk about people, shall we? Let's talk about the future of the manned. Sorry, I'm
personed.
It's just the
we do want to get women out there,
Yeah, but I'm just going to continue to call it the manned space program. Sorry.
Yeah. The human
space program. Yeah. Okay. Right. Anyway,
human space flight.
Yes. Do tell. Would you support sending humans back to the moon first?
Oh, sure.
Or are you a Mars only? Bugger the moon. There's nothing interesting there anymore. Let's just do the Mars shot thing.
Well, I think it's interesting that there's so much push to go to Mars, first of all, because I really would say, what's the difference between the moon and Mars? I mean, Mars doesn't have an atmosphere. I mean, it's like okay, it has a sky because it has it has an atmosphere that is so rarefied that you could not survive on it without a pressure suit. I mean, it's like,
no, that's right.
It is a few percent of atmospheric pressure. I mean, your blood would boil.
You wouldn't last long at all.
If you just got out of your spaceship and just stood there in the Martian atmosphere, you would be cooked like a hot dog in a matter of seconds.
It is a bit more, but it's a bit more useful. Like, technically, if they were the same to get to, you would pick Mars. Right. Like, if the effort was the same, you'd definitely pick Mars, because there's more stuff there that they can use to create fuel, building material, everything to set up. Like,
but I would think that it would be a requirement to be based on the moon to be able to go to Mars to begin with, because it's like, think so. From my standpoint, if you can't maintain a moon base, how the hell are you ever going to maintain a Mars base? Because if you can't make it work on the moon, if you can't keep people on the moon for years and make it work there, then why are you going like 3 months further?
3 months. It's
9 months.
9 months at least.
9 months. It's. I would think that it would be a prerequisite to going anywhere to have a full-time, fully personed moon base.
We need a moon base. Yeah,
and it's like
totally.
It's like Gemini with Apollo. You couldn't go right from Mercury to Apollo. You had to have Gemini. And where on Gemini they did everything. They had to do they had to do they had to do orbital rendezvous, docking. They did everything except landing. Tested all the technology, space duration, being up in space for weeks at a time, moon spacewalk, all these things had to be done on Gemini. So it's like, if you're talking about going right to Mars, we're just going to right to Mars, we're just going to live there, we're going to colonize Mars. Well, no, if you can't colonize the friggin' moon,
I know, you can't colonize
you
Mars.
Can't do
it's
anything
an order
else.
of magnitude harder. Not only from the point of view of getting there, travel, flight times, everything else, but re-entry is a big deal. Like, it's much harder to get. That atmosphere might only be a couple of percent, but it's a bitch, right?
Well, the speeds, you're approaching Mars very, very, very fast.
Because you have to, right? Otherwise, it'd take you 10 years to get there.
Right,
you have
and so
to approach
you've
fast.
got, they've talked about, aerobraking and stuff, idea that you'd slow down in the atmosphere to get into orbit and all that. But, I mean, if you can't solve all the problems on the moon, you're not getting to Mars.
Exactly. That's right. Have you heard of Robert Zubrin's Mars Direct program?
I've heard of Mars Direct, yes.
Mars Direct. Read his book, The Case for Mars. Here we go. Where is Robert Zubrin? I've got it up here. Robert Zubrin, who is the head of the Planetary Society, or something. He wrote a book, and he's an aerospace engineer, and he proposed this plan called Mars Direct, how to get back to Mars in 10 years. And when I read, and he details all the technical details in the book. It's quite a technical book. It's really good. I thought, this is great. I thought, this is the best thing I've ever heard. And yes, we could get to and colonize Mars in 10 years. It wouldn't be a very happy place to live, a happy way to live there, but we could do it. If the goal was just to send people to Mars, Mars Direct is the way to do it. But then I came to, then I read Aldrin's book, Buzz's book, where he came up with, a lot of people don't know, Buzz Aldrin is a theoretical guy. He came up with these. He wrote the book on orbital rendezvous, right? Absolutely. They used to call him Dr. Rendezvous, right? Because he actually has a PhD in orbital rendezvous, right? So he came up with these Aldrin cycles, they're called, these Mars cycler things, and I'll put up a video of how it works here. So he's got this periodic. He figured out these orbits, right, and between Earth and Mars, that would just be continuous cycled orbits. So you put these large ships in orbit, and all they do is cycle back and forth between Mars. They don't land, they don't do anything. They just regularly cycle. So all you've got to do is take a ship up, rendezvous with the passing. These ships don't slow down. These cycling ships don't slow down. It you rendezvous, you catch up, rendezvous with it, join the ship, hop on for the ride to Mars, and then you take a descent, ship down to Mars and then back if you want to come back. And it's for the long-term future, I think the Aldrin cycles are the way to go. The Aldrin cycler program. We just have like a fleet of these ships just regularly going between Earth and Mars, and they need very little fuel. Once you've got them up there, built them, and you send them between Earth and Mars, you just have 10 ships. So you can, every month you could hop on a ship to Mars. It's great. It's a great, it's an excellent idea. These orbits are stable. They require very little fuel, just a little to sort of, add in the course correction occasionally and stuff like that. But once you've got them up there and going, they just go forever.
But it would be slow travel, though. It would be sort of like tall ships.
No, it's not. They're still very quick. You can still get there in, hang on, I'm looking at the clock now, 500 to 600 days, 700. It's your regular, 9-month trip. Oh, no, that's a 3-year. Ooh, hang on. I can't remember the details. I'm probably talking out my ass from this point.
So I think that even all of the ways that they're talking about going to Mars, whether it's with these perpetually orbiting vehicles or flying straight, or doing the Elon Musk way, which is just
the Elon Musk way, yeah,
where he says, just make the fuel, send the fuel out, to points along the way, and then kind of fuel as you go, and But I think
kind of like the Mars Direct thing, is like build the fuel on Mars first, and then you land, it's all there.
Right. I think that, I think transit time is a big issue. What people don't talk about is that, what they found on Apollo, and this is actually what Buzz Aldrin was the one who really discovered it, was when they were on Apollo 11, was the high Z particles, because he was seeing flashes, and he reported these flashes he was seeing in his vision, and they figured that it was these highly energetic particles that were hitting his retina and distressing molecules in his optical nerve, and that he was seeing these bright spots that were basically just nerves that were being fired off by the electrical charge of high Z particles smashing into electrons in his eye. And so the real unknown is, Apollo astronauts are out there for, matter of days, a week. But you're talking about months or years in deep space.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
If people are getting to Mars and already have cancer, what good does it do? And of course
but if you look at the statistics for this, like people claim, oh yeah, you'll get cancer and all that sort of stuff. But even worst case scenarios for this sort of stuff, it only increases your odds of cancer from 0.1% to 2%. It's not.
Radiation.
Yes, it does increase, but it's not catastrophic like people think.
Well, radiation exposure, any radiation exposure, is just a matter of risk. So totally. There's no correlation between radiation exposure to anything that's carcinogenic, that's radiation or chemical, and cancer. But there are
odds. It's just your odds of getting it.
There's genetic predispositions. It's your own body's ability to repair and everything. But of course, as you increase the radiation, the odds get better and better that you're going to have cell damage. The problem is too that when you're in deep space, you have no protection from. It's not just about cosmic radiation, these high Z particles, neutrinos, things like that, but solar storms. We did not have any solar eruptions during any Apollo flights, which was very fortunate.
They would have got a lethal dose almost.
Oh, the amount of radiation that you can be exposed to from a solar storm, even a moderate one, is substantial. And, we don't have any way of protecting human beings in a spacecraft.
No, I thought we did. I thought because you can see it coming. The solar storm, it's coming. Right, so you can you get I don't know, half an hour warning or something. You get tens of minutes or minutes warning or something. And apparently, no, they're talking about a lot of the designs for the Mars cycler ships and other ships is that you would have an internal sealed enclosure inside there probably surrounded by their water supply. So you would actually, so if you got the message that, oh, solar storm, you would rush inside there and you'd sit inside, it'd be cramped, but you just sit inside there for the duration of the storm, and then you can come out, and apparently it protects you pretty well. You need like a foot of water or something. It's like
regular water or heavy water.
Regular water, I think.
Regular water.
Regular drinking. I think they're talking about having their drinking water actually as the emergency, pod where they can all go to, or something.
I guess
we'll
have to see if that works. Because some of the with the more energetic radiation, I would think that it would take more than that. But I mean, I guess they've crunched numbers.
Well, yeah, that's what I've heard anyway. So I could be, there could be more to it than that. But I've heard it is possible. I think it's in the Case for Mars, Zubrin's Case for Mars book. You should read it. It's a real good, read. So that's it. Plan for getting to Mars, and it's like, but you talked about Elon Musk's Mars shot thing. Aldrin actually, after Elon made the announcement that they're going to do this Mars shot, they want to do this Mars shot. Aldrin, I think, came out with something he made a statement. There's a lot of weight behind it. It's like, he said, but what are you going to do when you get there?
Right. Well, this is my big argument. It's like, you want to go to Mars, you want to go to Mars, you want to go to Mars. Yeah. It's like, what are you going to do on Mars?
Yeah, exactly.
That we're not doing right now. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do that we're not doing with Curiosity or
there's nothing for them to do. There is, there's no place. Yeah, Mars Direct was all about landing stuff first, and cycles of 4 ships or whatever would land material. They'd build material, so you have a habitat when you get there. But apart from that, you can't really do anything.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like we're going to go to Mars to farm. No. It's like you can farm on the moon as much as you can farm on Mars.
And you can do great science on the backside of the moon too. I'm a big advocate of putting a base on the far side.
Yeah, well,
because you can do some great science. Because then you shield Earth from.
Didn't they do that already? Because I saw the documentary for that. It was called Moon. It's like they have these clones up there on the dark side of the moon. They're mining helium-3. It's like, aren't they doing that already?
Or it's that Nazi base, right?
Yeah,
what's that movie? What's that movie with the Nazi base on the far side of the moon?
that movie. Yeah,
that is hilarious.
Yeah.
That's
Lunar Nazis. The Lunar Nazis.
The Lunar Nazis. That is. I gotta find.
That is a forgotten film. That is hilarious, but that is now forgotten. But yeah. But I really want to see a base on the moon.
Iron Sky. It's actually 2012. It's pretty recent. Iron Sky. Yeah. 5 years. Well, that's what it's got. Yeah. Iron Sky.
5 years.
Yeah, that's hilarious. It's great. I'm going to have to watch it again now.
No, yeah, I know. I'm going to have to watch that tonight.
That's terrific, Iron Sky. Rated R. Yeah.
Well, it's got Nazis in it, of course, It's,
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay, it's automatically, yeah. Action, comedy, sci-fi. The Nazis on the moon.
Well, there were Nazis on the moon because it's the dark part of the moon program that we never talk about, which is, how exactly did we get to the moon? We got to the moon because of the V2 and Wernher von Braun.
Because of the V2, Wernher von Braun, yeah.
And von Braun.
The famous line from Right Stuff, our Germans are better than their Germans.
Exactly.
Do you remember that line?
Yeah, of course. But it's true. I mean, when the Russians were running over Peenemünde, von Braun and Walter Dornberger, who was running the V2 program, they grabbed as many V2 rockets as they could and put them on rail cars because they had spent years tunneling into the hills of Peenemünde so that they could assemble V2s sheltered from Allied bombs. But they killed thousands of people bombing out the tunnels to build the planet Peenemünde, and thousands of people died making the rockets. And the idea, of course, by the time they surrendered to the Americans, they took as much equipment as they could and headed west so they could run into the Allies instead of being captured by the Russians, which they didn't want to do because they knew that the Russians wouldn't be so kind to them. So they when they got captured, in air quotes, They were sent back to New Mexico under Project Paperclip, where they were, as they called themselves, prisoners of peace. And so, there was this whitewashing of von Braun and Dornberger. Well, Dornberger was actually charged with war crimes, and he ended up being not convicted. But von Braun, he got a blank check and a free pass.
Yes,
but
he did.
But he was. I mean, I have his book and on space flight, and I don't know. I think that von Braun was essentially an antisocial person. I think he really didn't care. For him, you could say he was a pure scientist, but he was a pure scientist in the sense of the fact that if thousands of people died in the pursuit of rockets, that he didn't care about that.
He didn't get right. He didn't care. Okay.
He was quite happy to launch V2s on Britain. He was fine with the idea that people were worked to death building the V2. He didn't care. He was, he was on board with the Nazi Party, and he was very eager to sign off as soon as they got to power and take their money and build their rockets. He was very soulless on that.
Yeah.
Interesting. And that got us to the moon. I mean, it
did.
It's just one of those things about our species that you couldn't explain to an extraterrestrial.
No. Now, Neil deGrasse Tyson's always of the opinion that we will not get back to Mars unless the government does it, because there's just no financial incentive to do it, like as in humans to Mars.
There's no gold on Mars.
There's and sadly he might be right.
There is no commercial incentive for Mars. No, period.
Because the reason that we got to the moon is because of the Cold War. Like,
exactly.
We had to beat the Russians.
When we beat the Russians, we were done with the moon. Apollo 11, everyone was done with the moon. After 69, they didn't even want to go back.
No.
So
nobody watched it on television, but they had already budgeted.
This is my argument about Mars, that if there isn't a grassroots desire to go to the moon and build a moon base, then we're not going to Mars, period.
Then we're not going to get Mars. Yeah, it's just orders of magnitude harder.
Yeah. And it's not just that. It's if you don't solve the problems of colonization by doing it on the moon, you're not going to solve them on Mars.
I know. The moon's easy by comparison. It's like it takes a couple of days to get there. There's no landing. It's easy to land there. You don't need. Your ship's not going to burn up in the atmosphere. It's relatively simple compared to Mars. Relatively simple to get to Mars.
You got the low gravity. You don't have to go that fast, and
no, it's
proven.
You can take your time. Yeah,
it's proven,
and you don't have to slow down. Because we talked about that before. The problem with Mars is that it's so far away that you have to speed up your ship so fast to get there in any reasonable time. It takes the same amount of energy to slow down.
Sure.
Right? So, like slowing down takes the same energy as speeding up.
Well, look at how many landings on Mars have failed. How many probes have they sent to Mars? How many have been lost? And they've all been lost because acquiring orbit on Mars is really, really hard. It's really hard. And landing is even harder.
Landings, because you got that pesky little atmosphere, as thin as it might be. It's going to burn your poor little ship up because it's going so fast.
And you can't really land with parachutes because there isn't enough atmosphere to really land with chutes. So you got to land with rockets, which means you got to have heavy spacecraft.
It's got to be powered to send. There's so many engineering issues. So I'm a big fan. Like, I would love to see a Mars Direct. I'd love to see Zubrin's Mars Direct just so that we can say we've landed. But I'm also of the opinion of Buzz that if we're going back, we should go back to stay. Well, if we're going to Mars, we should set up a permanent colony. It's not just to go there to plant the flag and hey, take a couple of selfies and come back, and then it's all done and dusted, just like we did with the moon.
Well, it's like they said before, no bucks, no Buck Rogers. It's all about the money.
No Buck Rogers, yeah. Yes, if people have not seen The Right Stuff, please put aside like 3.5 hours of your life because it's a long movie.
Who's the best pilot you ever saw?
Who's the best pilot you ever saw?
Who's the best pilot you ever saw? So no, The Right Stuff is required viewing.
Yes,
for it. That's like day one. If you don't know anything about space flight, day one you watch The Right Stuff. that's the introduction.
It's great. I tried to get my wife to watch it and my family, like her family, and they just hated it. They just thought it was the most boring thing ever. I'm sitting there going, "This is great," you know.
It's awesome.
They just couldn't get through it. They found it too boring. It's very slow. It's a slow movie. It is not a I guess if you have no interest in space, you're going to find that movie boring, probably.
Well, I think that's the inherent problem is if you have no interest in space whatsoever, you're going to find the ultimate movie about space to be boring. It's true.
Right.
Yeah.
When are we going to do what I want to see? It's always bugged me, right? That 2001 Space Odyssey, right? We've got the rotating ship, the artificial gravity thing.
Sure.
We've never done it.
And in The Martian, the Martian too, they have the artificial gravity.
I want them to experiment with the 2000 Space Odyssey ship that the big ring that rotates, and as you see in all modern movies, copy that. They
sort of did it with Skylab, if you remember. One of the things they did with because Skylab, it was the same diameter as the third stage of the Saturn. Because it basically was the Saturn third stage hollowed out is what Skylab was. Okay. But what they did in there is they put a ring of a padded ring in there, and there's footage of the astronauts running. They would run in the ring and use their gravity to exercise. So it's then just like they did in 2001, with jogging and boxing.
With jogging around there.
Right. So that's the only example I know of where it's been done or tried, but yeah, I mean Arthur C. Clarke, came up with the idea of the rotating ring, and it's like you would think that the ISS they would have made it a ring first, but no, it's a lot easier to build sticks than. But again, it's like if you can't build that, then how are we going to get to Mars? If
exactly.
If we can't have an orbital platform where we have gravity, where people can stay up there forever and not get rickets, have their bones deteriorate and their eyes turn shape and their brain turn to mush. So if we can't make that work, how are we going to be in space for years going to Mars? It's just so we need the rotating Hilton in space from 2001. We got to have the lunar base, whether the Nazis build it or we build it, for the helium-3 on the moon, and only then, if we do all that, are we going to Mars.
Yep. Here we go. I've got video up of them running around the ring, the padded ring in the Skylab. I remember that now.
It was kind of tiny, but they kind of did it.
Kind of did it. I like the idea of having the tether. Another idea is not just a ring that rotates, but actually getting into a capsule thing, like a side compartment
with a counterweight.
With a counterweight and
have a tether,
swinging the counterweight around.
Sure,
and then
it would be easy. You'd think that they would have done it by now. You'd think it'd be easy.
I know.
To do. I mean, the closest they got to that was when Armstrong lost control of the Agena and Gemini, where they tumbled end over end, and that's as close as they got to that. But you'd think even that, doing the tether, that's such a simple experiment that someone would have done that already.
I know.
But
I know.
No,
I'm so disappointed.
There's so
disappointed
much
in
not
NASA
done.
that they haven't done that. I reckon that Neil Armstrong incident, the Agena thing, we're out of control, and he had to correct 3 different axes of he had to do it all manually, and actually recover and save the spacecraft.
He had to detach from the Agena. And first they thought that it was people might not know, the Agena was a target vehicle. They used in Gemini, and so the Gemini was
that they could test the rendezvous thing.
Right,
so they send up the Agena so that they could dock with it.
Right, they had to. It had to have mass, because you can't dock with something that's actually has less mass than what you have in your spacecraft. You would just bump it and it would float away. So the Agena was a stage of a rocket that was heavy, and it had a docking attachment on one end that they would rendezvous with and attach rendezvous the Gemini with. And so when they met up with the Agena, and as soon as they docked with it, they started to tumble, and they assumed that it was a problem with the Agena. So Armstrong detached, and as soon as he detached, he started to tumble very fast. And I think they were rotating like several RPM. It was dizzyingly fast, and so they were seconds away from blacking out because of the G forces. And Armstrong apparently, I think he got out of it by initiating the reentry system, which fired the reentry rockets. Which it was an automatic system which stabilized the because they didn't know where the thruster was.
I thought he did it manually. I thought he manually corrected it. I thought he manually got that under control, or maybe he got it under control far enough that he was able to engage that system or something.
I don't know. Sure. I thought they used the landing system to write it, but
but anyway, he saved the ship.
Well, he rode his way to being on the first moon landing when he saved his own butt with the simulator.
Oh yes, he ejected from the
right.
Yes, the flying bed stick.
Right, because that when he saved himself from that out of control simulator with like a fraction of a second to spare, that pretty much secured his seat with him and Buzz. I mean, Buzz was also probably going to go on the first moon landing by default because, like you said, he wrote the book on orbital rendezvous.
Orbital rendezvous, yeah.
And so, having the two of them with the most crack pilot that they had, who was also the only non-military pilot. He was the only civilian in the astronaut corps, and Buzz. It really was the natural choice, probably for the first with the most unknowns.
Although they kind of sort of didn't know, like it's not like they just picked him because they had a rotational system, whereas the backup crew for any mission would then be the prime crew for a mission 3 or 4 missions later. And it just so happened that Armstrong and Aldrin, with Fred Hayes, I believe, were the backup crew for Apollo 8. So they went, because they were the backup crew for Apollo 8, they became the prime crew for Apollo 11. So it's kind of sort of a bit, timing related as well. Because Apollo 11 was never slated to be the moon landing one. Because as I said, Apollo 8, they changed, the whole plans changed once they hit Apollo 8.
That's true. Well,
everything.
Well, you're going to have to ask Deke Slayton.
Deke Slayton, yes.
Exactly how they came up with that. I would think, though, that they did not have an Apollo mission that was going to be the first moon landing. That's correct. They did not know which one it would be. But they did have, backup crews but for the first landing, it was pretty clear that they were going to be very particular about who was going to get that mission. Yep. So I don't think it was accidental that the two of them...
Probably not, but it just happened. It met the rotational requirement as well, so that was a good thing. But yeah, maybe if Apollo 10 didn't work properly and had issues or whatever, then they might have rearranged the crew or something to ensure that.
I had this
Aldrin and Buzz
because we're doing the video. I keep forgetting that we have video, but I was looking in this book today, and there was this picture. I think it's this one. I bookmark it. No, I didn't bookmark it. But there was this photo in here of Deke with everyone in the Apollo Astronaut Corps in 1963, and pretty much everybody in the room walked on the moon except for Gus. And it's just one of those photos where I can just imagine, I don't know if it was ever said, but I could just imagine Deke saying something like, the first person to walk on the moon is in this room, something like that.
Yep, yes, that's in one of the books somewhere,
but yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, but you see, all the hoopla about Mars, it's just that you only get to go to the moon once. I mean, as far as like first. So it's like, I think people who are pushing for Mars are thinking that it would be like an Apollo level, that humanity would unite around it like they did in Apollo 11.
No,
but it's not that. I don't think that moment can be repeated.
I don't think so either. It would require another, Cold War. It requires something else. It requires.
I think the only thing that could top Apollo 11 is if we actually had contact with another intelligent civilization. I think that would be the only thing that would have that moment where every single human being is looking at a monitor.
Right.
And with younger people,
but even then, people might go, oh, okay, yeah, it's not. I don't know.
So maybe it's impossible.
It might be impossible to recreate that time period. Like I wasn't there, but from everything I've read and seen, and stories I've heard,
I think that Apollo 13, the Ron Howard's depiction of that moment where where the astronauts are sitting there in awe, watching people that watching their friends, they're and the look, where Tom Hanks acts that scene, where just the look of awe on his face, I think that really solidifies what that moment was like. I don't think that our species can really recreate that moment.
Probably not. I'd have to agree, I suspect. There's probably maybe some way it could be done, but I don't know. I think we would have to be in imminent danger, Armageddon type, like the Earth's going to be wiped out, and these guys, we need to get people to, I don't know, go up there and blow it out. So
like a Bruce Willis moment.
A Bruce Willis moment. It's got to be something like that. It's got to be,
Well, see, this is how it's going to happen. We're going to send coal miners into space that are going to save us. Coal miners will save us in space from a large asteroid that is ironically made entirely of coal. So we got to send up coal miners and somehow, Liv Tyler ends up being involved. That's something, I'm working on it, but that's my pitch.
Right.
But I think my frustration is that with younger generations, there's no way to convey what that was like in '69. There's no way to convey that moment when you're watching a guy walking around on the friggin' moon. I mean, everyone who's lived since has lived in an era where people have walked on the moon, where people are in space all the time. It's like my grandmother, was, when she was born, she hadn't been in a car or a train. There was no electricity in her house. They didn't have indoor plumbing. And, she went from, having a telephone as the first piece of technology that she ever encountered in her life, to watching men walk on the moon in one lifetime.
Incredible.
And there were people at the time who were born in the 19th century who, who grew up before radio, before airplanes, and they were watching people walking on the moon. One lifetime.
Incredible.
And that's just something you can't even give that perspective to someone today.
Yeah, we're not going to get that same. Am I going to live to see someone walk on Mars? Yes, I think I will. I've got
probably a billionaire. It's probably a billionaire, but go ahead.
Right. Okay. Right. I've got another good maybe 40 years left in me if I'm lucky. Unless medical technology gets better or whatever. Before I've lost the plot. And I can see it happening. My little boy Sagan, of course, he's only 6, so he'll definitely live to see it. But I don't know. I want it so badly. I want us to colonize Mars just because it'd be cool,
Well, here's the other downer, is that if we can't find ways to maintain our civilization through catastrophic climate change, we're not going to have technology to go to Mars.
Exactly.
I mean, in the next century, the amount of climate change is people today are want to argue the points. They want to argue what's going to happen. But, there's no denying that the Arctic is melting at an exponential rate, and the oceans are warming. We're going to have sea level rise, of course. But, the fundamental truths of the next 100 years are going to be how we make food, how we have agriculture when our agricultural regions are no longer habitable.
That's a big deal.
In another 100 years, there may be large swaths of the planet that are uninhabitable. They said that equatorial regions may exceed human habitability. We're talking temperatures.
If you want a good discussion on this, watch Neil Tyson on the Joe Rogan podcast. Have you seen him on that?
I haven't seen the podcast, but I've seen him.
It's like a 2-3 hour interview, and he actually talks about this. It's really fascinating. He talks about what it would take, effort to and expense to get a sizable colony on Mars that would actually protect our planet from us killing ourselves or a big asteroid impact or whatever. And he made the point that whatever it takes to get 100 million people to Mars, or even like he said, 1 billion, but like let's say it's 1 million. Let's say you get because you want to send a sizable percentage of the population to safeguard this planet, right? So that we could whatever effort is required to do that, it is orders of magnitude less effort to deflect the asteroid that's going to kill us, to solve climate change, to re-engineer our atmosphere so we don't kill our own planet, or to re-engineer a vaccine for some killer virus that's going to wipe out 99% of the population. It's orders of magnitude easier to achieve those goals than to get to colonize Mars and get 1 million people there.
Well, I know it's true. And you know what? The cheapest part of climate change is just stop putting carbon in the atmosphere. That's a good start.
Stop being a dick.
We could talk about building massive machines to reclaim the carbon out of the atmosphere and try and reverse the process. But a good start would be to stop putting carbon in the atmosphere.
Stop damaging.
Just
hey,
as a
there's
start.
Sorry, Gene Cernan just popped up on the screen. Had a little moment there. I've just got video running in the background, just YouTube
That's cool.
video here.
Yeah, this is cutting edge stuff. This has never been tried before.
Nope.
This is our Apollo program for podcasting. We've got like 15 machines running, recording this audio, video.
My one machine here. My one machine is doing 3 separate recordings. It's recording the Mumble stream. It's recording the Audacity stream direct from my mic, and it's also recording full HD webcam video with audio from another screen.
And I'm
nuts.
My 10-year-old AMD system is chugging along like a champion, running on vintage system. So, yeah, all systems go.
Oh, we've been going for like 1 hour and 42 minutes.
Yeah, it's been a while, but
anything you want to talk, any last minute stuff? Because I wanted to get onto the Mars. So you're an advocate for the moon.
I'm an advocate for the moon. I think well, I'm not just an advocate for the moon. I mean, it's the truth. If we can't make it work on the moon, we're not going to make it work anywhere.
Exactly.
The moon is the New York City of space. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. It's up to you, the friggin' moon.
I think it's totally. I do not think it's possible to have a privately funded colonization mission to Mars. It's just too expensive. But I think it's possible, maybe not privately funded, but certainly government funded, to get back to Mars, get back to the moon, and set up a permanent base there to do science. And to me, that's on the far side, because you shield yourself from the Earth, which generates lots of crap, which on the dark side of the moon.
Did you see the video that Elon Musk did about his proposal for his solar system wide transit system that he is proposing? Because I think what he's trying to do is, Elon is just, he's trying to make Mars and the point and like the highlights of the solar system accessible, with the idea that space tourism would pay for
space tourism. No,
that there's enough money that the top 1% of 1% has enough money, and that there's enough of them who want to go that they're gonna pay the bill for ships going all around the solar system.
I would love to believe it, but it's not going to happen. I think Elon is totally wrong here. It's not going to happen. He's talking about, we'll go visit Europa and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, it's the 1% in space. It's this whole thing again about the class that, that the only way we're going to get to Mars is if the 1% go to Mars. We're going to put billionaires around the moon. We're going to put billionaires to Mars. Billionaires will travel through the solar system, through space tourism. It's all, that's all it's going to be.
You're not going to find enough people. You're not going to find enough people willing to fund it.
Well, it's like the space tourists that have been on the ISS are all, billionaires.
Yeah, yes.
If you can shell out the $53 million cash,
exactly,
you get a seat. To get up to the ISS. You get a seat
on a dodgy Russian rocket that takes you up.
Well, they're not dodgy. They have
they're solid. They're rock solid.
They haven't changed the design in 40 years because if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, but I think that's doable if some new president, it's not going to be this one, but some new president, US I'm talking about, because US has the bucks to make Buck Rogers possible.
Well, but the thing is, we're in a really weird and dangerous time. If our systems, that we have taken for granted, if our systems of government in the United States fall apart, as they may, there won't be any government funding of science, or there won't be a government funded NASA if the current administration or the administration that follows this disastrous administration breaks the government, which they're trying hand over fist to do every single day, is break the government. You don't realize that the United States government, Americans complain about their government because it's too big. But the United States government is not too big when you consider what it does.
It's not too big. It's just badly directed.
We're a very large country.
Focused.
Well, yes, it's too top heavy because we spend more on our military than the next 11 or 9 nations combined. It's very top heavy. We've been deep in debt because we fight all these kinds of wars. So we borrow money that we don't have to do that. So and this current administration, they've been doing everything they can to sabotage all the little parts of our. They've taken away our EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency is being dismantled. The Federal Communications Commission is going to be dismantled. The Food and Drug Administration is going to be dismantled. All these agencies that certain people in our country have thought of as being the problem. All these regulatory agencies, they're dismantling the government. So what happens to tiny little parts of the government like NASA or like these
0.5%
these tiny little scientific data gathering agencies that no one's ever heard of, that gather data on climate or plants, agriculture, these little things, these pesky little entities that are taking up money. Well, all these are going to go away. And so, just from a political standpoint, if you want to have government-funded spaceflight, you have to have a government that works and is not broken, first of all.
Exactly.
And we don't have that, and we're going to have an even more broken system as these years go on. It's part of the plan of the current administration. So I don't know if we can't attack climate change head on, we're not going to be exploring the universe. We're not going to explore space if we can't tackle climate change.
All it takes is a stroke of the pen, though. In theory, a stroke of the pen, double NASA's budget from 0.5% or whatever it is to like 1% of GDP, and bingo, you've got your lunar program.
Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't work like that in America. Unfortunately, only Congress can allocate money for anything. So it doesn't matter what president you have.
But you can reallocate stuff that's already approved. There is scope to do that, and there's shenanigans you can do there. A president can do that. President can't. Has to ask Congress for more money.
Congress, the NASA budget, NASA's the NASA budget and everything else that is spent by the federal government can only be allocated by Congress. So Congress has to, and so Congress, you're dealing with two houses, you have a House of Representatives, you have a Senate, and the politics of Congress determine how much money NASA gets over what period of time. As with every other like administration that gets any kind of budget, they make the budget, not the president. In the case of like Kennedy, the president can make a directive and then lobby Congress
and lobby Congress to do it. Yeah, of
course. But we have
but that was additional. I'm pretty sure they can shuffle funds around once approved.
No, the president has no control over money in the American government. Okay. The president has no control. President cannot issue money, period. The Congress
he can't issue it, but he can direct how it's potentially...
The president can make a request. The president can make a request to Congress, but only Congress can allocate money. Congress writes the budget. And they pass the budget.
I will err to your American knowledge here.
We've got a complex system of checks and balances. There's which seems to work most times, but we're really pushing the fringes of really what is functional government at this point. But in order for NASA to have more money, it requires lobbying in Congress. And unfortunately, in our country, Congress is lobbied by corporate entities. It's the oil companies, it's the drug companies, telecommunications companies. Anyone with big money, they hire lobbyists. And lobbyists are these people whose only job is to badger congressmen and women and to do their bidding. So NASA and scientists, they don't have lobbyists. And because scientists don't have lobbyists, they do not have a voice in Congress. And so they don't get any money. So who does get the money? The military, coal, oil. These entities get their bidding done in Congress. And this is part of the broken system. So every year, science gets less, NASA gets less. And so this is the thing. It's like, I agree with you that government has to step in, but it's not going to be our country. It's not going to be my country that's going to be the leader in space. It's going to be...
It may not, yes.
It's going to be China, it's going to be a leader. I think Australia could get in there. You got a lot of land. You've got coastal land on the East Coast.
That's all we got. We just don't have the GDP. We just don't have the money. We are not that big a country.
Got to crowdsource it, Dave.
And crowdsource it, okay. Yeah.
Fund me moonshot,
Yep.
You can Dave Cat it all and
We'll get there. No worries. Just a couple.
It'll be like built your rocket ships will be like Mad Max cars. Kind of built out of kind of kit bash a bunch of old Fords and stuff and. No worries.
Love it. No worries, mate.
Dave, this has been so great.
We should call it quits there. It's been awesome, isn't it? We should do this again with no Chris, because he just gets in the way. He doesn't know anything about space,
Well, I learned a lot. I mean, I learned about how the radiological generators work and learned about, I
learned about the tether. I didn't know about the tether.
No one knows about the tether.
Man.
The tether is it's one of the dark secrets that NASA doesn't want you to know about. There should be it's one of those videos.
All the conspiracy theorists. Oh yeah, we knew it.
Yeah.
Did you see the NVIDIA? I think it was NVIDIA made that simulation of the Apollo 11 landing. Did you see that?
Maybe not. I have my own. I have my own simulator that's quite old.
Right. No. What they did, right, is they wanted to bust open the conspiracy theory about the famous photo of of Buzz coming down the ladder. Neil took, once Neil got down, he took a photo of Buzz coming down the ladder, right? And it's a very famous. Here it is. It's a very famous. Sure. I've got it up now.
Well, Neil took all the photos because he's the only one with the camera.
He was the only one.
They didn't give Buzz a camera.
He took this. And everyone's going, how can, all the conspiracy theorists are going, how can they why is Buzz lit up when he's in the shadow? Right. And all
it's in freaking daylight. It's broad daylight.
No. It's, it's to do, anyway, NVIDIA, they remodeled the entire moon, the ship, Buzz, they modeled, computer modeled everything and accurately right down to each grain of lunar dust. right? They model, and because they wanted to demo their graphics processors, right?
Yeah.
So they put all this stuff into a simulator, and then they were able to like vary the light sources and everything, simulate the sun and everything else. And it popped out, the other end popped out the exact same photo as what Neil took. They were able, and no, it wasn't quite perfect. Buzz in the photo was a little bit darker than what it was in the photo. They did all the simulation, did everything, worked for this on a year or something.
Sure.
I don't know. And the photo popped out of their simulator that was almost close, but not quite. And they figure, why is it not perfect? Why does it not match perfectly?
Because
Neil... somebody came... Sorry?
Well, Neil, it's, the light's reflecting off of Neil too. I mean, he's...
The light is reflecting off Neil's suit and light. So once they included that... Once they included Neil standing there with the camera, his white suit was reflecting the light back on the Buzz, and the photo matched perfectly. It is the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. There's a YouTube video about it where the guy from NVIDIA discusses this. Well, okay, and it's just
here's the short list of all the things. Okay, so why aren't there stars in the pictures? Well, because it's broad daylight. It's broad daylight. It's like it's 12 o'clock noon, broad daylight, and not only that, but it's bright. It's like 15% brighter on the moon than on Earth because you got no atmosphere. There's like even on the brightest day, it's like brighter than the brightest day on Earth, like on the moon. So so the f-stops are down, so you're not going to see stars or tiny, very dim things, and they have f-stops on cameras that's not totally overexposed. And as far as like the shadows and stuff, it's like the lunar soil, it has the reflectivity of ground glass, so it's basically like Scotch Brite. And Scotch Brite is the stuff that they put on biking equipment stuff, so it reflects headlights. It reflects like 98% of light, like in the same direction. So I mean, the surface is like brighter than the whitest white snow, right? It's broad daylight, and so there are no dark shadows in a situation like this. Like there's so much freaking light, it's like, and it's bouncing off the suits and stuff, and everything about perspective and everything. People just don't understand. It's like you don't understand optics. It's like anyone who has like lived their life with a camera, they know all the tricks of perspective and everything. It's like and here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line for like that. To top off all conspiracy theories, okay? It's real simple, okay? We landed on the frickin' moon, okay?
Exactly.
So
deal with
there's no reason to explain all these phenomena. It's like it happened. It's there. It's like like the orbit, the lunar reconnaissance orbiter took photos of all the landing sites. You can see the footprints and everything. It's like no, they put robots down there to make those. It's like you watch the rocket take off the pad. It didn't like land in New Jersey, It's like you have a 6 million pound rocket, that's capable of going to the moon. It's like, okay, fine, you accept that there's a rocket that's capable of going to the moon, but for some reason they just didn't go there.
It is. Have you seen the late 70s, early 80s movie Capricorn 1?
Yeah. Oh, of course,
where they faked the Mars landing
with O.J. Simpson, of course.
Was O.J. in it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Right.
He ends up eating snakes in the desert. It's burned in my brain.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Oh, okay.
Yeah. They faked the moon landing. Then the astronauts have to escape their captivity and fight in the desert because because it's because when you have a 6 million pound moon rocket. What you want to do is fake it in the desert.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Dope. Obviously.
All
right. Thanks, Fran. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Dave. It's been great.
We have to do this again.
Yeah. We'll talk about other space stuff. There's
other space
There's
stuff.
So much more. I mean, I didn't even talk about
maybe we should have a list before we come on. Like this was just off the cuff. I
didn't even talk about the Disco Display project and all the other junk.
No. So, maybe we can have an agenda next time.
We should talk about space electronics next time.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great.
Let's do it. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Fran.
Thanks, Dave.
Next time.
Yeah. Bye.